Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a quick look back at 3 really cool tips and tricks I've learned in Google Sheets over the past few months. The first one we'll be starting out with uses a ChatGPT plugin called GPT for Sheets, which I thought was especially interesting. I think you'll hopefully be able to start utilizing at least one of the 3 tips and tricks in your day-to-day job. I wanted to ensure the barrier to entry isn't that high for these tips, so hopefully you'll understand what's going on with these if you're relatively new to Google Sheets or moving towards being an intermediate user. This channel is all about productivity and self-improvement, but also workplace skills like spreadsheet training. All of these areas are all part of the purpose of realizing more of our potential, not just in the workplace, but also as individuals as well. So like and subscribe to the channel if that sounds good to you. Let's get to the first point. So when I first found out you could integrate ChatGPT into Google Sheets, I was really keen to learn more. I started using the plugin called GPT for Sheets, which was made by a company called Talarian. I think I'm getting that right. It's simple to install and does cost a small amount to get an API key from OpenAI, which you then enter into the plugin's sidebar once installed in your Google Sheets, so you can connect to ChatGPT. But so far I've paid around $6 and still haven't used it all up after running quite a few functions over the past few weeks. The plugin has a set amount of built-in AI functions you can use, and what we're looking at today is their function GPT Classify. When you have a ton of raw data that you need to analyze, the process will always include grouping similar values together, comparing their count to other groups of values, and searching for patterns. But before that analysis can happen, how can we speed up the process of identifying and clarifying similar values to look at, especially if they're not numbered and you're sitting in front of lots of data that would take ages to do manually, which in this example is product reviews for an e-commerce store. We've got hundreds of reviews here, and I want to list only the negative reviews to find out what the customer issues were. It would take ages to go through each one and go, okay, right, they liked the product, but they didn't have a good experience with slow delivery. Right, I'm going to mark that review as negative. That would take ages. What GPT Classify does is quickly analyze each review so that when I apply the function to the entire column, all my reviews are instantly classified as something that I can now start my analysis on. You enter the function, select the value first, which in this case is the review cell, then enter the categories you'd like the function to assign depending on the review. The function will only draw from those you enter. It's that simple. You only enter those 2 arguments for the function, then hit enter. What's even more impressive is you can drill down even further for your analysis. The AI will classify some reviews as positive about the product, but in the same review the customer might also have had a bad experience of delivery. So if I want to filter out those types of reviews from the list, I create another column, enter the function, but this time for the category arguments I'll enter delivery and product for the example and press enter. Now I can filter reviews which are positive but also specifically mention the delivery or the product. This is such a useful function. So I came across this next tip recently that makes following and dealing with a to-do list much clearer in Google Sheets. Most colleagues I work with use Google Sheets for a handy to-do list. But what would you think is the best thing to do when a task is completed? Delete the row? You could do that. Strike through the cell? You could do that too, and that's certainly something that I would do. But sometimes at first glance it can be confusing as to how many to-dos have been done, and when you add a strike through without sort of doing anything else, it can sometimes at first glance sort of look like there's still a large list there and it's unclear what's been done and what's right there still needing to be done. So for someone visiting the sheet to quickly see what's left, you can make things much clearer for them. Create a new column and select arrange for some tick boxes to go. Head to data, select data validation and head over to the sidebar that then appears. Select the criteria drop down, head to the bottom and select check box, which adds boxes to the range you've selected, which if you need more, you can always drag the cursor further down the column and there you go, you've got some more. I find it's useful to keep the completed task there on the to-do list as a reference of what's been completed, but we could do that little bit more to make things clearer. So now select the entire range, including the tick boxes, select format, conditional formatting, and then in the sidebar, select format cells if, head down to custom formula is, and in the formula box, enter the cell reference for the first cell with a tick box. Starting with equals, enter a $sign to anchor the formatting to this cell, then equals again and the word true. What this means is if the box in that cell is ticked, which the system identifies now as a true value, it'll apply the following formatting to the entire row that box sits in. So finally, having that entered, head to the formatting box, click strike through and quite a dark grey colour, which is basically like dropping the opacity of the text. This makes things look clearer and much more smarter for people visiting the sheet to quickly work out what's going on. Okay, so the final tip is using the import range function. To really simplify this function and why it's super useful, you're basically able to import ranges of data from other spreadsheet documents if you're wanting to consolidate certain information into one place, if that's what you're wanting to do. Often you may want to summarize data in one document and you'll need to bring in lots of strands of data from different places. Now you can just copy and paste the data from these other documents, but doing things this way is far more dynamic. Let's have a look at a simplified example. So here I have a list of the top 10 products an e-commerce store sold last week. Now I want to fill columns D and E on my document with the exact amount of money the products took last week and the total amount of reviews they each have. This information exists on a spreadsheet document that our sales team have created here, which is a separate document to mine. So what I can do is easily select the first cell, enter import range, and firstly enter the URL for the spreadsheet of the sales team, which is a separate document to mine. Enter a comma as there's two arguments which need to be entered for this function. And secondly, the exact columns in their spreadsheet which have the information I need, which is C and D on theirs. You may have noticed that each argument in the function needs quotation marks. This is just telling the system that text exists between these quotation marks. Spreadsheet software like Google Sheets needs to be able to distinguish between numerical values and text strings, despite the fact that the URL actually, funnily enough, contains text and numbers. Now press enter or close out the function with a closing parentheses, and you may be prompted actually to allow access to the spreadsheet you're trying to retrieve data from. Once you've done this, it may take a second, but there we go. This brings in data from another spreadsheet, which is what I need. What's cool about this is the data you've brought in will be dynamic, meaning if someone makes a change on their document that you brought the information in from, the change will automatically reflect in the data set on your document that you brought it into. That's useful if someone is still trying to fill in sales information for a product on their side or are perhaps correcting a mistake they've made. So this function proves really useful, especially if you're dealing with large data sets from multiple teams and you want the information you're analyzing to always be up to date. Really, really useful. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I'd be really interested to hear if any of you out there watching have used any of these tips we've covered today, and if you have found any useful in your job. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon for another video.